Mr. Fagan, you're here to prove that Miss Pinkston is your biological daughter.
Yes, Your Honor.
You claim you kept this secret for 40 years, but now say the DNA will prove your case.
That's right, Your Honor.
Miss Pinkston, you stand before me without any doubt that Mr. Fagan is not your biological father, and the man who raised you is.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Miss Pinkston, what upsets you most about Mr. Fagan's claim that you are his biological daughter?
Well, Your Honor, I met Mr. Fagan here when I was 16 years old. I never knew of him, never heard nothing about him. And then all of a sudden one day, my mom decided to take me with her to a friend's house. My mom calls me to the dining room. She goes, I want you to meet somebody. They get to talking to me, Mr. Fagan, and my mom. Then my mom just out says, hey, by the way, this is your father.
Who did you think your father was? Did you know your father?
This is my father, Mr. Gus Pinkston. This is who I've known my entire life.
So, and he was married to your mother?
My entire life.
And so you grew up believing this is my father, my biological father?
Yes, ma'am.
And it wasn't until this moment?
This has been my biological father for 43 years. When I was 27 years old, my biological father passed away.
Mr. Fagan, start from the beginning. I want to understand why you believe Miss Pinkston is your biological daughter.
Me and Miss Pinkston's mother had an affair. We worked together at a plant. We got to know each other.
You spent a lot of time together. Because you worked a lot of hours together.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Did you know she was married?
Well, yes, at the time. It was wrong what we
How long did the affair last?
5 or 6 months, maybe somewhere. I mean, she came to me before I left the job and told me that she was pregnant.
When she told you, did she say, and I think you are the father? Or you might be?
I was the father. And she told me we're going to keep this a secret. Well, then we knew we had to be quiet because she was married.
And they knew it was wrong for what they did to my dad.
She did not want this secret to get out, and you agreed.
I agreed.
She was married.
I agreed.
So you knew that this child would be born into the marriage and that this other gentleman, the man that
Gus.
Miss Pinkston believes is her biological father, would raise Miss Pinkston as his own.
Yes.
Miss Pinkston, as a child, you always thought your mother's husband was your biological father.
That was my father.
No one ever told you anything different.
No, Your Honor. The only reason why this all came out, for the cat to get out the bag, is when I was 16, they told me that Kenny was my father. The only reason why was because my mom thought I was dating one of his family members. And that's why they told me. But needless to say, it was not me, it's my sister that was dating his family member.
Oh, and so they felt like they needed to tell you because you were dating your cousin.
Yes. When they told me about it, that was like the worst day of my life. Because my mom sit down, she goes, this is your father. I'm like, no, my dad is at work, so what in the world are you talking about? And next thing you know, there's tears everywhere. Everybody's crying.
It
was pretty much the worst day of my life. That was it. It's the worst day of my life.
And you're 16 years old?
Yeah.
Yes, she was.
And I can see it hurts you right now.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking about it. Did you not want to believe it, or you just?
I didn't believe it.
To this day, Your Honor, she does not believe that. That's why.
Did you ever talk to your father, the man you believed
No,
your father?
my dad passed away never knowing the secret from the time I was 16 until I was 27. We never spoke of this subject, ever.
So at 16 years old, you were called upon to keep this secret as well?
Yes.
And you had to. You never spoke a word of it. You all asked a 16-year-old girl to keep a secret like that, Mr.
No, we did not. I did not ask her to. Her mom insisted that this would stay between us and her when we told her. She was raised by Gus there. And I know how much she loved him. She never would call me her father.
When my dad passed away, it was probably a few days after he passed away, we was all at my mom's house. And Mr. Fagan, he comes over, and I had my kids there. My kids really didn't know him, but when my dad passed away, he decided to take it upon himself to tell my kids that he's their grandfather.
When you went to speak to the children, had you had a conversation with her first to ask if it's okay?
I figured it was already done, Your Honor, through her.
You thought that there was a level of acceptance. You thought
from her too, telling them that I am her father and I am their grandfather.
But when he told my kids that he's their grandfather, my kids were destroyed.
I always knew that she felt Gus was her father. As bad as I wanted her to feel me, I never got that from her.
You are the defendant's sister, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what you know about this huge paternity secret.
Your Honor, honestly, I don't even want to talk about it. I mean, it's been this long. They should have left it alone. I love you, Tanya, but this is something I really didn't want part of. My mom was a good woman. My dad was awesome. If it was a secret, it should have stayed a secret. If you can hold it for 43 years, you should have just left it alone. Now there's family that didn't know that know. It just hurts.
Did you ever overhear anything?
Yeah, as a young kid, you know, when grown-ups doing grown-up things and if they're with their friends and, you know, sometimes people just talk and they think kids are back in the background. But it's not always like that. And I heard it, but I act like I didn't hear it.
What did you hear?
That Kitty was her father.
Who did you hear say that?
My mom and a couple friends. This is something my mom didn't want none of her kids to know. But it took for my dad to pass away for all these dark secrets to come out that should have stayed in. And I feel, even though he's gone, it's still disrespectful.
Mr. Fagan.
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes.
are not her
Oh my
father.
God.
Oh, Lord, no.
Oh,
Oh, no. No, no, no. Tanya. Oh, no. Oh, Tanya. Lord, have mercy, Jesus. No.
Are you all right, Tanya?
this is something
I can't believe this.
that need to be known. And
Yes, this
It
is
is. It is. I know this was not the news you wanted, Mr. Fagan.
Oh, no.
I know for you, Miss Pinkston, this has been years. This has been for almost 30 years. You've had to endure this level of confusion.
Tanya, I'm so sorry, sweetheart.
And I hope you understand, Miss Pinkston, that I don't believe they were trying to hurt you by telling you. I think your mother truly believed Mr. Fagan was your biological father.
lifetime of torture for nothing.
Mr. Fagan, you look absolutely shocked.
I am, because I always believed it.
Where do we go from here?
Together, stay.
Ms. Gray, you say the defendant, Mr. Pearson, has ripped your family apart because of his denial that he is your 10-month-old daughter, Kamaya's dad. You say he never denied your two oldest kids, but refuses to believe he is the biological dad of baby Kamaya, your youngest. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Pearson, you claim that not only are you not baby Kamaya's father, but you know that her dad is actually a member of your own family.
Yes,
Is
Your
that
Honor.
right, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Gray, you say you have two older children together.
Yes, Your Honor.
But he does not pay Kamaya any mind.
No, Your Honor.
What are your hopes for today, really?
I just want him to be a part of her life. Granted, I would love to have my family all together because that's what I really came here for. I just want him to treat her the way he treats the other ones. He treats them way more better than he treats her. He buys them things. He don't buy her nothing.
Is that true, Mr. Pearson?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
It is true.
Yes, it is.
And that's because of the doubt you say you have.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how you ignore a beautiful baby like that.
It's not right.
The older children, how old are they?
1 and 2.
Do you feel like they can feel or understand that something's going on? Or is it
No.
just because you know and you see the difference?
I know and I see the difference.
Mr. Pearson, why do you doubt Kamaya is your child?
She slept with my cousin, Your Honor.
What?
Exactly what?
How did you find that out?
Being the fact that he was at my house while I was leaving to go to work. And I just left it be. I didn't question it. You know, I thought I could have more trust in my cousin. And we moved in with them.
You moved in with your cousin?
Yeah, because at that time I didn't have suspicions until, you know, we started to move out. And I started thinking, I said, I wonder what he was coming to my house for. I'm leaving to go to work. So who was he there for? And then I moved out of there and I moved to a friend of mine's house. That's when they allegedly started messing with each other. But I look at it as if you did it once, you did it then, you've done it before, you've done it, you'll do it again. I'm a man. I know what it's like. We as men, we can be dogs.
Well, all right, say that.
You know, and that's the truth.
I'm going to
The truth is the
accept
truth.
that into evidence as fact. Ms. Gray, did you sleep with his cousin?
Yes, I did. It was revengeful. It was revengeful because he left me in North Carolina when I was pregnant with our son DeMonte to go be with his cousin's ex-girlfriend. Not only that, they have a kid together. So yes, I slept with his cousin several times too because
There you
it was
go. Now the truth come
revengeful.
out.
Mr. Pearson,
You
you
did
were
it more
never
than
told
once.
it happened more than once?
Actually, he the one that told me. And he told me that it happened, and I confronted her about it, and she lied to me, 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 and she still lies to me about it, Your Honor.
So in your court papers, when you say you believe a family member is Kamaya's father, you believe that's your cousin?
Yes, Your Honor. I mean, look at it. The baby looks like my cousin.
He accused me of sleeping with everybody, Your Honor.
Yes, Your
Even when
Honor,
I'm
I
not
did,
sleeping
because
with
she couldn't
nobody,
tell
he
me the
continues.
truth.
Ms. Gray, did you ever tell the cousin you were pregnant too?
I was already pregnant when I slept with his cousin. So there's no way that that's his cousin's baby, but he's too dumb to realize science. But
So let me ask you this. Have you ever told the cousin that he potentially could be Kamaya's father?
no, I told him that he wasn't the father, and he insisted to me that he was the father. And I said, well, if you think you're the father, you go buy a DNA test. I told both of them to go get a DNA test.
I have nothing to prove. She's the one that has to prove that this child is mine. I don't have to prove that this child is mine. If she was so interested in telling me, proving to me that I am the father, why she couldn't even get me a DNA test the day that baby was born? Like I completely
I tried to do that.
requested her
Hold
before the baby was born.
on. Mr. Pearson, when she told you were pregnant, did you know anything about the cousin when she told you she was pregnant?
No, I didn't.
So when she told you, you immediately assumed that it was your child?
Yes, I did.
But this cousin says, Ms. Gray, that he insists it's his child. Jerome, I would love to hear from this cousin. Mr. Pearson, we're here talking about the paternity relating to baby Kamaya. Ms. Gray has testified that you've indicated that Kamaya is your biological child, and Mr. Pearson, your cousin, has indicated that he is aware that you were sleeping with Ms. Gray. Are these things true?
Yes, Your Honor. I was aware that she was pregnant. As being who the father was, neither one of us knew, because at that time, she did tell me that she was pregnant, but the time frame between when she had the baby and the time frame when I slept with her, it felt like it could have been mine. So
when you say she told me she was pregnant, did she come to you and say, I'm pregnant and this child could be yours? Or did you just found out she was pregnant through the family?
at first, no, she was like, she's pregnant. And I was like, well, do you know who it is? And she was like, it's your cousin Theo. But when the baby was born, me and my cousin saw the baby, and we had our own judgment, as he thought, since he already knew about me sleeping with his baby mama, he thought, well, that I could be the father, and I thought that maybe I could be the father too, because look at the baby. And so I asked her, I said, do you know if I'm the father or not? And she said, well, if it's anybody's, it's between you and your cousin.
Mr. Pearson, how do you do that to your cousin? Now, you know he's on his way going to work.
No, it wasn't like how he puts it. I wouldn't just come over there just because he'd be going to work or anything like that. They had a son there. I would always go over there to see DeMonte. I would go play with DeMonte. I didn't disrespect him until he disrespected me.
In all honesty, it sounds like you went over to play with DeMonte and then you ended up playing with his mother.
No.
In the case of Gray versus Pearson, pertaining to whether Mr. Alexander Pearson or Mr. Theodore Pearson is the father of 10-month-old Kamaya Pearson, it has been determined by this court the biological father is Mr. Theodore Pearson.
Can I see my daughter, Your Honor? I want to go be with my daughter now. I'm ready to be with my daughter now.
Good. So listen, you all got to figure out how to have real relationships. And that requires a level of maturity that you may not possess. But now that you have all of these children, we got to grow up because we're kids raising kids. And I know one thing. I can see the look of sadness and sorrow in her eyes and the look of intensity in your eyes. You don't want your children in a courtroom like this. Ms. Lindsay, you say that after years of lies from your mother and uncertainty about who your father is, you believe you finally found him.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say everyone in town, including his family, knows Mr. Dannenbrink is your father, and you intend to prove that today. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Dannenbrink.
Yes, Your Honor.
You admit to having a sexual relationship with Ms. Lindsay's mother, but say there is no way you're her biological father.
That's right, Your Honor. I met her, and we just had like a hit and run situation. She disappeared on me, and then we got back together again, and a couple of days later, she went her way, and it just kept on for years that way. And there's no way she could be my daughter, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Lindsay, what do you mean everyone in town knows that he's your father? What do you mean by
Your
that?
Honor, okay, so about 35 years ago, my mom does admit to having a child with Mr. Dannenbrink. And
how many years ago?
About 35, around there.
Okay.
And when I was about 16 years old, an ex of Mr. Dannenbrink's came to my house and accused me of being the child that they had together. And when I had asked my mother about that, she told me no, that it wasn't true.
You were 16?
Yes.
And an ex of Mr. Dannenbrink's comes to your house?
Yes.
And says, you're the child that your mother had with Mr. Dannenbrink?
Yes, Your Honor.
In other words, the ex thinks you're the child that came in between her and Mr. Dannenbrink?
Yes, Your Honor.
When she said this to you, what did you say?
Well, at first I was like, what? You're wrong. There's no way. And I came to my mother and I talked to her about it. And she told me no, that he was not my father, that another man that she had told me was my dad.
She said this other man is your father, but you'd never met that man?
No, I still haven't. So I don't know who that is.
Okay, proceed.
So about 4 or 5 years ago, we all pretty much met up again in church. And I knew that Mr. Dannenbrink was the person that I had thought, or at least was accused of being the child of, but I was too nervous to approach him for pretty much rejection. And so I just left it alone. And then my mother and him had started talking again, and we became more close, I guess you would say. We lived right next door to each other, and we started having barbecues together and spent a few holidays together and things like that.
The man next door, your neighbor?
Yes.
You believe he's your biological father?
Yes.
But you've never said anything to him?
Not really.
Wow. Ms. Hampton?
Yes.
What was the nature of your relationship with Mr. Dannenbrink? Were you just dating, committed?
Your Honor, this was like in the late 70s, and we dated off and on, and I was involved with somebody else, and he was involved with somebody else. 5 years ago, we met back up and started having conversation and platonic relationship. We're best of friends.
So, Mr. Dannenbrink, did you know about the pregnancy?
I did not, Your Honor. She never told me that she was pregnant. She never told me I even had a child.
You didn't
Your
tell
Honor,
him you were
Your Honor,
pregnant?
I had no reason to tell him because he's not the father.
Ms. Lindsay, your mother's saying that Mr. Dannenbrink is not your biological father.
Right.
What leads you to not believe your mother?
The doctors did say that I was born a month early, but they also said that I was going to be a boy the entire time she was pregnant with me. So they could have been wrong. Second thing, my mom does admit to having a child with Mr. Dannenbrink. Throughout my life, though, the dates have kind of changed a little bit. I remember at one time it was that she was an older sister. Then I remember at another time she was a younger sister than me, and she was stillborn at birth.
Hold on now.
Your Honor.
Wait a minute. So you've been told a story
Yes.
by your mother that she did have a child with Mr. Dannenbrink.
Yes.
You were told this child passed away.
Yes, at birth.
Yes.
At
Your Honor.
birth?
Yes, Your Honor. I had a stillborn.
And was that Mr. Dannenbrink's child?
Yes, Your Honor.
She never said nothing to me about that.
She didn't technically lie about another brother, but she didn't tell me about another brother. She got pregnant and gave him up for adoption. It went through social media that he found me. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? You're not my brother. And I called my mom at that time and I said, I have another brother? And she's like, oh, well, I thought he died. And I was like, what? And
Wait a minute. You thought he died?
It was complicated, Your Honor. I had gotten pregnant by a man that was married, not knowing that he was married. The agreement was that he was going to take the baby because I financially and mentally could not handle having another baby.
But you thought he had passed away?
Yes, Your Honor, because that's what my mother and the doctors had told me.
You have a photo that you've submitted to the court.
yes, that is his son and myself.
Do you see a resemblance?
A little bit.
Just a little?
Yeah, because I mean, I do look like my mom a lot.
Mr. Dannenbrink, do you see a resemblance?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay. So, Ms. Lindsay, what's your relationship like with Mr. Dannenbrink right now?
I want to say he's kind of like a father figure to a point. We kind of joke about him being my dad and me being his daughter.
How do you
And
joke about it?
Just randomly, like people will say, oh, you guys look alike or something like that and things like that. Or he'll say, oh, good morning, my beautiful daughter or something. And I've never had that before, so that's good.
Does he know your children?
Yes, all 4 of my children. They don't have grandpas that are alive. So he has graciously told my children that they're more than welcome to call him grandpa.
In the case of Lindsay versus Dannenbrink, when it comes to 35-year-old Bobby Lindsay, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Dannenbrink, you are not her father.
Sorry. It doesn't matter. I consider her my daughter.
How are you feeling, Miss Lindsay? I know this was difficult for you.
Confused, but I'm happy at the same time for closure on that part.
Miss Hampton,
Yes, ma'am.
I have to ask you, do you know who your daughter's biological father is?
I still stand firm that it's another person. He would admit to photographs because he's seen photographs of her through my mother, but physically he would not admit it.
Do you know where he is?
No, Your Honor, I don't.